Alright guys, we're starting a new high octane series today, and it's called 99 Ways You're Gonna Die in the Apocalypse. So let's get to it. Now the first way you're gonna die in the apocalypse, it doesn't matter if you're a prepper, doesn't matter if you have the best survival skills known to man, if you are in the epicenter of disaster, if you're in the blast zone, if you're in the quarantine zone, if you're at ground zero, your lights are out. There's nothing you can do about it. It's just the way it is, folks. So the number one thing that's going to kill you is probably going to be bad luck, but it's not all about luck. Depending on where you live, it's going to determine the likelihood of some major cataclysm happening in your region. Are you in a densely populated urban environment? Because that's the most practical place to go to make money? Unfortunately, it will come at the cost of being one of the first to go when the 7 trumpets start blowing, if you know what I'm saying. Number 2, if you're one of the millions of people around the world who's dependent on life support, if you're in the intensive care unit, if you're on medications, if you have chronic health problems, chances are you're probably going to be one of the first to go in the collapse of society as we know it. If the grid goes down and the backup generators go down and there's no more power to power the life support systems that you rely on to survive, it's just a fact of life, you're probably going to die. Now, one hedge against this is to take care of yourself. Try to the best of your ability, avoid tragedy, accidents, consequences, which would have you have your health severely compromised, that you would rely on these systems or rely on these medications. If you can, get backups of these medications. The fact is, if you rely on medicine, if you are dependent on drugs in order to survive, whether as an addict or as a person who actually needs to medicate some sort of ailment with those substances, you are probably going to pass away, or life is going to be so gruelingly hard that you'd probably rather not exist anyways. Next up, suicide. Now here's the thing, we are our own worst enemy, especially when you consider how dire the circumstances might be and the fact that a significant portion of the population is hooked on pharmaceutical drugs that are keeping them from killing themselves right now. You remove those drugs, you're going to have a whole lot of people taking the plunge into the eternal abyss that is endless night. This is the thing, a lot of people are not going to be able to handle the sheer stress of a crap hits the fan situation. Could you imagine having everything that you come to know in this life suddenly taken away from you? Everything that you appreciate, or in the case of most of Western society, take for granted, taken away from you instantly. You know how many bat crap crazy people are going to be looking around for self-help books and motivational life coaching on YouTube, but there ain't going to be no YouTube. Here's the thing. There's going to be so many people who simply are not cut out for the stress of a post-collapse world. Natural selection will be sudden, swift, and it will cut down those who simply cannot handle the circumstances. A life without social media narcissism, 3-second jump cuts, and random memes is not worth living. What am I going to do without McDonald's and Snapchat? I wanted to see what an 8K TV would look like. I wanted to have a frickin' robot butler! Damn it! I was promised automated, self-driving cars, and I'm pissed!
Screw this apocalyptic, bug-eating crap! I got no Red Bull, no surround sound,
Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, nothing!
There's no point to living anymore.
Now the next reason why you're probably not going to make it is because of a personal psychological limitation you put on yourselves. Basically, it boils down to the fact that you are not willing to do what it takes to survive. I'm going to guess that you, yes you, at least half of you are not willing to eat bugs to survive. Here's a quick tip for you if you had to eat bugs. And personally, I've never eaten bugs. I like sticking to freeze-dried food. Mountain House, shameless plug right there. Mountain House freeze-dried food. Go check it out. Excellent stuff. Anyways, if I had to eat bugs, what I would probably do, number one, I would try to cook them up as good as I can. I would try to put myself in a state of consuming nutrients as opposed to chewing food. What you probably don't want to do is chew it. What I would suggest you do is swallow it. When I'm forced to eat crickets and grasshoppers and grubs, What I'm probably going to do is I'm going to cut them up in little pieces, and I'm just going to swallow that stuff like pills. Now, I understand that mastication and chewing is going to break down those foods so you can get the most nutrients out of them. I simply don't care. I'm swallowing the bugs. That's what I'm going to do. You do what you want, but the fact is 50% of you are going to die because you are not willing to go the distance and eat bugs. The next reason why you're probably not going to survive is because you, like the majority of people on the planet nowadays, simply don't have the skills. You don't know how to hunt. You don't know how to fish. You don't know how to... You wouldn't know what to do with a wild animal if you caught it in the first place. You'd probably get some disease because you processed the meat wrong or something like that. Go out and get the skills that you need to learn how to do this. And you probably won't find a whole lot on YouTube anymore because YouTube has decided to demonetize every single video which shows the processing of wild game. Now, the next reason why you're probably going to die in the apocalypse is pretty straightforward. You've relied your whole life on the system to defend you. Basically, if you ever had a problem, you call the police, you call the fire department, you call the ambulance. When there's no more taxpayer-funded security at your beck and command, if you have an aversion to weapons, to the idea of self-defense, my friend, you are putting yourself at great detriment under those circumstances. So what I would encourage you to do, get some basic self-defense firearms training for you and your family. Whether you are a gun proponent or not, you cannot argue this one fact. People who have proficiency with firearms are going to have a significant advantage in a Mad Max post-apocalyptic world. It's just the way it is. But you need to remember something else. Just because you're a gun guy doesn't mean that you're not going to encounter some other gun guy, and perhaps he's going to see you as a greater threat because you are a guy who has guns, whereas these people over there, they don't have guns. They're just, you know, random gypsies doing their thing, whatever. They're not really bothering anybody because they can't if they wanted to. Maybe you might draw attention to yourself. You know, live by the gun, die by the gun, Tupac. Remember that? Probably not. Anyways, now the next thing I want to talk about is radiation sickness. Some people know if the lights went out, if the grid went down, there's no way for nuclear reactors to possibly sustain themselves. Maybe for short periods of time. But eventually, when those nuclear reactors cannot be properly decommissioned, you're going to have nuclear meltdowns all over the planet. Pretty much this is going to wipe out all of humanity. And this is something you never see in movies like, or TV shows like The Walking Dead. Could you imagine by now, what are we, like season 8 of The Walking Dead? I think we're probably in year 4 or 5 of the characters' lives. Could you imagine how many nuclear reactors have went into meltdown that are at least near the vicinity of Atlanta by now? Shouldn't Rick's head be like this big? Like, shouldn't they be fighting off some kind of radioactive mutants by now? So make sure you stock up on your potassium iodide. That's going to prevent your thyroid from absorbing that radiation, but there is no possible way you can store enough of the stuff to last you as long as you would need it to last you. Chances are we're all gonna die, which is why in reality we're all Walking Dead. Seriously, what we're talking about here is how to survive longer, not to live forever. The next thing that's going to kill bazillions of people is going to be contaminated water. Water filtration is a dime a dozen nowadays. The fact that people are not willing to go out and buy a $20 bottle of Pool Shock, which can literally purify thousands and thousands of gallons of water, is astronomically stupid. There is no reason why this day and age you should ever drink contaminated water. With the amount of filtration options on the market today, which do not cost barely any money whatsoever, $20 for a Sawyer water filtration system which can process thousands of gallons of water. Don't be that guy who's holding up the line in the post-apocalyptic outhouse because he drank the wrong kind of water. Use your head, learn the basics of water filtration. It will save your life. The next reason why trillions of people are going to die in the apocalypse is because you're out of shape. You simply were not physically fit enough to get your ass out of Dodge when it mattered. That's all there is to it. Maybe you just needed to be able to lift 50 more pounds to hoist that beam off of you to escape that burning building. Maybe you just needed to run 1 more mile to be able to escape the worst effects of a blast zone. Maybe you weren't able to carry that person to safety, which was your loved one, and therefore you committed suicide afterwards because you could not live without them. The fact is, if you make poor lifestyle choices, if you are physically out of shape, you are probably going to die long before the apocalypse. So don't worry about the apocalypse. The Grim Reaper's got your number. Anyways, guys, that's only a few of the ways that you're going to die in the apocalypse. In future videos, we're going to go into a lot more specific depth about how you might be a victim of the system when the crap hits the fan. We're going to talk about things like poor sanitation, how you might get hustled, swindled, why it's important to ration your resources, nutrient deficiencies, dying from exposure, caught up in the pandemonium of a evacuation scenario. Stay tuned because it's all coming up on this channel. We got gear reviews, we got a pocket talk, we got interviews with knowledgeable preppers, survivalists, all that great stuff, adventure stuff,
Bushcraft stuff, wilderness stuff, survival stuff, yada 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 yada.
all coming up in 2017, 2018 on the Canadian Prepper YouTube channel. Stay tuned because you ain't seen nothing yet. Canadian Prepper out.